turn this off. I think I'm loud enough. You won't have a problem with me. I'm Connie Barrington, and I was tasked with trying to provide you in 10 minutes what you need to know to be a rural librarian. And so I'm going to share some stuff with you about that. First thing I'm going to share, and Joe said you'd be kind enough to help me get connected, is how a nice city girl like me from Chicago and Los Angeles ended up out in the boonies. And I'll show you just how boony we are in a minute. Then I was in Los Angeles and met my husband there, and he turned out to be a guy who came from Calipatria, which is a small town in Imperial County. And at one point when we decided we were ready to move out of Los Angeles, he wanted to come back down. So about 23 or 24 years ago, I said, I'll go for 5 years. Now my idea of rural before that had been like maybe I lived out in the country when I lived in Chicago, which meant you went from my town of 35,000 to another town of 70,000, and if there wasn't a sign you didn't know, you'd switch towns. So I really had no notion if I would survive in, even in the big city of El Centro, which is now up to 42,000 people. It's computer 2.
We're getting help, Connie.
Okay.
So Vera went to get it.
Computer 2. It's computer 2. So down we went to Imperial County. And I'll show you a map of Imperial County. We're basically the east of San Diego, between here and the Arizona border. Along the Mexican border up to the border of Riverside. We cover about 100 miles from west of, I know the county has a branch there in Jacamba, to Winter Haven, which is a tribal area basically. Got the Kachan over there. We go north from the border to, thank you, from the border up to the Salton Sea. And then over, if you follow along over there, if you have an idea where Blythe is, just below Blythe is still part of our turf. Here I am. Thank you so much. Would you please? Yeah. Skip 2. We'll show you the map here. This is Imperial County. It's 4,700 square miles. 4 towns are not part of the county library system. They're Brawley, Imperial, El Centro, and Calexico. The whole rest of the county is in our system. We're at this point the cash poorest system in the state of California, at least last thing I looked at. So we're definitely rural, however, because like Ocotillo, I say it's a settlement, it has 400 people and 500 opinions. We have Palo Verde up in the other corner there, that you'll see in the far corner, and it has about 270 people, and it's like the town that the world forgot. You have A Street going through, and that's it. Little fire station there, that kind of stuff. So I became quickly acquainted with being a rural librarian. Next slide, if I may. One of the organizations I want to introduce you to, the Association for Rural and Small Libraries, had circulating. You know you're a rural librarian when. And we had maybe 300 actual stories, varying from some fairly boring ones about people who missed pigs in the bookmobile and hit a quail, and this kind of stuff. These are 4 that were actual experiences of mine. Oftentimes, if I cut and don't take the main drag or 2, I'm caught behind agricultural implements on a 2-lane highway, and most of them are pretty courteous and will try to pull over, but a few, they're going between their fields, and forget us, the drivers. I hear gunshots occasionally outside my office, particularly start of September was start of dove season for us. And I actually love out of the office I'm in now, I can look out the window and I have sheep grazing there several days, different seasons. And they're very restful, so it's a very nice view. Patrons are affronted if you do ask them to see their library card. particularly if I go into the branches that I'm not in normally, and if I'm at the front desk, it's like, well, of course you should know who I am. Or I didn't bring my card. Why would I need a card? You know I'm Julie so-and-so. And then you're stopped wherever you are and asked about what books you have, or have somebody want to give you back books, that kind of stuff, any place you go. And from the way you're nodding, some of you have had rural experiences in rural libraries there. If you'll go to the next one. Thanks, Joe. Forgive this, it's on here. I wanted to make a point. Definition of what's rural varies. If you're doing grants, or if you're doing another project, you want to check with that organization as to how they define rural. If you go on with these, I've got some of these here, different ways they're defined. If you don't mind going on this next. I put 3 or 4 on here to give you an idea of how it's looked at. One of the more common ones is here from a medical viewpoint, which is the next slide, I think. Let me see here. Keep going on if you would. We should have a picture.
There you go.
Oh, okay. I'll take you to it from the rural resources, sorry. These definitions, as I said, vary. But you might be surprised to know that most of California is rural. Most people are. Yet if you will go into the Rural Library Initiative, Rural Libraries, which is one of the 2 really good sites to know about here. Sorry about that. The map that we're going to go to, if we get here, is actually one for medical purposes and shows how little of California physically is actually considered urban. Most of us are not only rural, we're beyond that, we're frontier. And I hadn't understood that until I went to a meeting with this rural initiative sponsored by the California State Library, and I thought I was coming, as I said, for me this is the boonies, right? So I found people who'd driven 5 hours to get to an airport to fly to my meeting here in California. And even at ARSL, I found someone who takes her 3 hours by ferry to get to Walmart. So there's more rural areas out there even than what I considered rural before. I'm sorry if we're not getting there, but if you get a chance to go to the Rural Initiative, I refer you there because what we've attempted to do, those of us who participate in it, is to get samples of documents, materials, studies, whatever might be useful to other rural librarians, and have them in one spot that you can search. So thanks to the State Library, it's there. There might be an example of a school, and if you're doing a partnership, there might be an example of a partnership agreement, joint school library agreement, other documents. If you just want to see how somebody else who's rural has done something, it's there. The second site I want to refer you to is ARSL. This is an organization that went from just a few people about 7 years ago, and it's now a national organization, 500 members, people from all over the country come to the conference, which I had the opportunity to attend last week. And we have one of the best listservs you'll ever find if you're looking at being rural. You can't ask a question in there that you don't get good responses from other people, and they all know what you're dealing with. If you're poor, if you're outlined, if you only have a few people, if you've never had, well, we've had 200 a few programs, but if you live in a community where 200 would be everybody and the baby who'd come to your program, that kind of stuff. These are the other folks who know that. So I wanted to refer you to these 2 particular organizations, and then I asked them on this listserv that I like so much, what piece of advice would they give to you if you're thinking about coming into a rural library? I took the responses I got, and they seemed to center around a couple of different things. That we're all neighbors, with the good and the bad that implies. People dropping off books at your house because they know where you live, and saying, well, your grandma would never appreciate that you're wearing that shirt in the library, or whatever else it might be. That we're part of a community, and that you participate in ways you perhaps didn't think were the library's business before, but being part of the community means you're on the committee for the Carrot Festival, or that the Carrot Festival cook-off is in your branch, even though you don't have very good facilities for it. And flexibility. Some of the better quotes, I thought. In a perfect rural library world, librarian staff become one with the community. Flexibility is always needed. And then, Jane, you can close your ears to this one. Everything you learn in library school must be filtered through the rural screen. I probably have some of the worst catalog records in the Sarah area. You know, we're lucky to get it in the catalog. If you can find it there, that's great. You know, we have 5 people, basically, for 4 branches, and 2 of them are open 40 hours a week. So we are stretched thin. There isn't a hat I don't wear. And my piece of advice to you is basically retain your sense of humor if you're a rural librarian. But I welcome you asking if you have any questions or whatever. No? Okay. Well, see, I was fairly quick today.